chilling new directive from the government to eliminate children, pregnant women, and the elderly in a desperate attempt to manage resource shortages, Mia and Nico make a heart-wrenching decision to flee Spain with the help of a trafficking ring. They arrive at the port under the cover of night, tense and cautious. A trafficker leads them silently through the shadows toward the spot where they'll pay and board a container bound for Ireland. At their destination, the trafficker hands Nico's money to his boss. But it's not enough. The boss demands more, and Nico, desperate, offers his engagement ring. When that still doesn't suffice, he turns to Mia for hers. She hesitates, but Nico takes it anyway to secure their passage. With the payment made, they are led to the container, a cold, cramped refuge where others are already huddled, fleeing the same horrors. Inside, Mia removes the cloth covering her pregnant belly, revealing her fears as doubts creep in. She whispers her concerns about Ireland, but Nico remains steadfast, insisting they'll be safe there. His optimism seems unshakable, though Mia challenges him, urging him to admit he's scared, just like she is. But Nico shakes his head, insisting he's not afraid because he believes everything will work out. Exhausted, they drift into uneasy sleep, only to be startled awake by the sound of scraping metal. Another passenger is drilling a hole for air, a small mercy in the stifling space. But Mia grows anxious again, confessing that she hasn't felt the baby kick in hours. Nico reassures her, brushing away her fears with relentless positivity. Yet his calm demeanor only frustrates Mia further. She tells him she doesn't understand how he can pretend everything is fine when it clearly isn't. As her gaze falls on a young girl sitting nearby, tears spill down her cheeks. She breaks, sobbing that it's her fault their daughter, Uma, was taken by the authorities. Nico assures her it isn't. He tries to comfort her. Suddenly, a deafening bang reverberates through the container. Everyone jolts to their feet. The banging grows louder until the door swings open. The traffickers are back, shoving more frightened souls into the container. As the new passengers rush in, chaos erupts inside the container. Mia is shoved toward the back. Nico tries to reach her, but the leader of the traffickers fires a shot into the air, silencing everyone. His frustration boils over as he yells that the container is too full. Some of the passengers must be moved to another. When no one volunteers, the leader orders his men to drag those at the front out. Nico makes a desperate attempt to get to Mia, but a trafficker intercepts him. He pleads, explaining that his wife is at the back, but the response is brutal. Nico is thrown off the container. Mia pushes forward, but before she can reach the front, the doors slam shut. Panic floods her as she peers through a small hole in the wall, catching sight of Nico being led into another container. Mia quickly calls Nico, her voice trembling as she tells him she needs him. On the other end, Nico struggles to sound reassuring. He insists she'll manage on her own and promises to find a way out when the truck stops. His voice takes on a note of urgency as he warns her not to trust anyone and to keep her belongings secure. Mia begs him to stay on the line, to keep talking, but Nico reminds her they need to conserve their phone batteries. The call ends, leaving Mia feeling both isolated and strangely steadied. As the truck begins to move, Mia gazes through the hole. The sights outside are grim. People scrambling for scarce supplies, soldiers firing indiscriminately. The crack of gunfire echoes as bullets ricochet off the container walls, though, miraculously, none find their mark. Her relief short-lived as she catches a new scene through the hole. Pregnant women and children are being loaded onto trucks, while men beg and scream for mercy. Time passes. The truck jerks to a stop and murmurs ripple through the passengers. Through the hole, Mia sees they've reached a checkpoint. Gil, the leader of the soldiers, approaches the driver, demanding to know what's inside the truck. The driver claims it's nothing but ordinary shipping goods. Gil inspects the paperwork, his sharp eyes flicking between the driver and the truck. Nearby, the truck carrying Nico's container is also stopped. Gil shifts his attention to it, instructing the driver to open the doors. The driver hesitates but complies, revealing only a lone box inside. Suspicion lingers in Gil's gaze as he climbs into the container himself. After a brief inspection, he finds nothing amiss. Still unconvinced, he orders one of his men to take a closer look while he steps outside to scan the surroundings. Gil walks to the end of the container. As his eyes scan the space, he notices something, another compartment hidden within. A grim realization crosses his face, and he steps back inside, his voice cold as he commands the passengers to come out and surrender. But there is no response. Meanwhile, Mia scrambles to climb on top of a box, seeking shelter in the shadows. Before Gil can issue the order, the door to the inner compartment creaks open, and a passenger steps forward, hands raised in surrender. But Gil's expression doesn't soften. With chilling resolve, he reveals his true intentions. The order to eliminate everyone is given, and the sound of gunfire fills the container, silencing all. Mia, hidden in the shadows, trembles with terror as the scene unfolds around her. She watches as Gil orders his men to clean out the container. and Mia's breath catches in her throat as she finally lets go of the tension she's been holding. Fumbling for her phone, she records a message for Nico. "Hide," she says urgently. "The passengers in my container, they're all dead." She tries calling Nico again. Desperation creeps into her voice as she leaves another message, begging him to call her as soon as he can. Soon, the truck comes to a stop, and the container is loaded onto a ship. Mia peers out again, trying to make sense of where she is, but the water all around makes her feel smaller, more vulnerable than ever. She sits back down, her eyes scan the container, resting on a bag that once belonged to one of the passengers who had been killed. Mia reaches for it, a drill, a bottle of water, a small phone, and a torch. She wraps herself in a blanket, hoping for some rest, but sleep doesn't come easily. Suddenly, the container jerks violently, tossing her against the walls. She cries out as she hits her head, disoriented and in pain. The shaking continues, and Mia can hear voices from outside the container. She tries to scream, to bang on the walls, but her efforts are in vain. The men outside can't hear her. The container rocks dangerously again, and the next wave tilts the ship, sending the containers crashing overboard. When she regains consciousness, Mia feels the cold, clammy sensation of water surrounding her. She scrambles up, checking the small holes in the metal walls. Through them, she sees nothing but endless sea. Desperate to reach out, Mia picks up her phone, but the screen is cracked. Frustration builds as she tries again and again to unlock it, but it won't budge. She grabs the small phone, hoping for a miracle, but despite her repeated attempts, it remains locked too. Mia sits down. She places a hand on her belly, checking for any sign of movement. Her heart lifts slightly when she feels the baby's faint kick, but the fear never fully fades, and she decides to focus on something to keep herself occupied. She begins to check the boxes scattered around the container. The first box she opens reveals containers, headphones, TVs, jackets, and drinks in various boxes. As she walks through the space, her eyes catch sight of a knife lying on the floor. Her search continues, but there's one box tied to the top of the container that she can't reach. Instead, she finds some tape and begins covering the holes in the container, hoping to prevent more water from seeping in. Amidst the clutter, she discovers a book, a collection of family pictures. But before she can dwell on them, something else catches her attention. The voices seem to be coming from a container just like the one Nico had been in. She immediately calls out for help, but her stomach drops when she sees that the container is sinking. Panic sets in as she frantically switches the SIM cards between her phones. She calls Nico's number, her hand shaking as the line rings, but it goes unanswered, her exhaustion evident in the way her body slumps. Each attempt leads to voicemail. Defeated and overwhelmed, Mia pulls the knife from her pocket. She contemplates ending it all, but just before she can go through with it, she feels something stir in her stomach, the baby's kick. Mia's breath catches, and for the first time in what feels like forever, she feels a glimmer of hope. She puts the knife away and curls up, her exhaustion overtaking her. Sleep finally comes, but it's restless. She wakes with a start, drenched in sweat, her heart pounding in her chest from a nightmare she can't quite remember. Panic sets in again as she notices the tape she'd used to seal the holes has been removed. With a sense of urgency, Mia gets to work. She finally manages to pry open the box hanging from the ceiling, only to find more containers inside. But then an idea sparks. The rubber from the box cover can help seal the holes. She uses it, securing the edges as best as she can, then grabs a pipe from one of the broken TVs and uses it to pump out the water. Once the water level has gone down, she places a piece of tape on the wall to mark the current level. She also marks a second point, her limit. Mia takes a deep breath, surveying the items around her, trying to make sense of it all. She arranges her belongings, food, water, anything she can salvage, and hangs the pictures of her family around the container, a small comfort in the midst of the chaos. Just as she finishes, her phone rings. She picks it up, and to her relief, it's Nico, a wave of relief flooding over her as she hears his voice on the other end. Nico says his phone went off, and the truck driver left them outside the city. He also mentions it might take him a few days before he joins her in Ireland. But Mia tells Nico she's no longer on the ship, and she's lost in the middle of the sea. As she starts to cry while explaining what happened, Nico tells her to remain calm, and that he'll do everything he can to come and rescue her. The call soon ends, and Mia starts feeling serious pain in her stomach. But after a while, her water breaks, just as she sees a storm coming. The storm soon hits, and a call comes in. As she's about to pick up the phone, it falls into the water, and there's nothing she can do. After a while, Mia delivers her baby, Noah, and she then tears one of the jackets in the container and uses it for Noah's diaper. Despite all her efforts to stop Noah from crying, the baby doesn't stop, and as Mia wonders what she can do, she realizes that she can use the electric drill to cut a part of the container open so that she can take the baby out for some fresh air. Mia soon gets Noah to stop crying. She eats the last food available. The following day, Mia started using the drill to create holes at the top of the container. After a while, the drill stops working, and Mia gets frustrated as she doesn't know what else to do. When her phone also fails to unlock again, she starts to throw things around until she sees the knife again. She immediately realizes it can be helpful in completing the work already started by the drill. That night, Mia hears a strange sound close to the container. She checks outside and is shocked to see a shark charge towards the container. She immediately grabs the baby and shouts for the shark to leave them alone. This happens to work, and in the morning, Mia starts cutting through the top part of the container. However, the blade breaks off and she's unable to continue any further. As nothing seems to be working for her, Mia just sits in the water and starts hallucinating. She sees her other daughter, Uma, and apologizes for allowing her to be taken away by the authorities. She says it's her fault and starts crying as Uma then walks away. Mia also sees Nico, who tells her it's not her fault and that she needs to stop blaming herself for what happened. The next morning, Mia wakes up and finally finds a way to bring down the part of the container she had been cutting. She feels happy and takes Noah outside for the first time since she got stuck inside. As she changes Noah's diapers and throws the old one into the water, Mia notices that it's attracting fishes. She then tries to catch a fish, but all her efforts don't work out. Just as she gets tired and decides to rest, she sees a plane flying through. She immediately goes back into the container and breaks the TV screen to get a piece of glass. As she climbs back up, she tears her leg, but despite the pain, she still tries to get the attention of the plane. But this doesn't work for her, and she then has to stitch her legs, after which she starts making a net with the headphones. When she's through, she's able to use Noah's diaper as bait, and with this, she gets a fish. Soon after, she starts writing messages calling for help and puts them in the Tupperware containers, with the hope that the current carries them to meet someone. Mia continues to live her life in the middle of the sea, and after 12 days of being stuck in the middle of the sea, she takes a look at pictures of Nico and Uma. She then starts talking about how they were a happy family until the shortage of resources started. She says they had to lock themselves indoors, but after a while, Uma always talked about going out to play. Despite knowing how risky it was, Mia let Uma go out, and that was the day she got captured. Mia looks sad as she tells the story, but much later, she gets to sleep. That night, she suddenly starts hearing something hitting the container. She goes outside looking scared, but is relieved to see that it's only one of the containers she had thrown into the water. As she takes a look around, her phone rings, and it happens to be Nico. Mia sounds very happy to hear his voice, but rather unfortunately, Nico says he won't be able to come and rescue her. He says while making efforts to escape to get on a ship and find a way to save her, he got shot by one of the soldiers, and he called Mia so he could hear her voice because he's not sure he'll make it. Mia starts crying as she hears this, and as Nico tells her to make sure she gets to Ireland safely, she tells him Noah has been born. Nico sounds happy over the phone, and Mia takes the phone closer to Noah so he can hear the baby. Nico is pleased with this, and he says nice things to the baby about Mia, saying everything will be all right as long as she's in Mia's arms. After the call ends, Mia can't hold back tears as she now knows she's all alone with Noah. On day 26, Mia makes a raft using the container and tries it to see if it can work. After a while, she also sees a seagull and realizes they're close to land. That night, the water crosses the limit inside the container, and Mia sees that the holes are now leaking and allowing more water to come in. To stop it from sinking fast, Mia swims in to try to block the holes. But while she's at it, she gets tangled with the ropes in the container. Meanwhile, Noah is on the raft, which is also moving away from the container, while it sinks. Mia struggles to finally untangle herself, but as she comes out, she doesn't see Noah. Mia starts to panic, and at the same time, a whale also goes close to Noah. However, it doesn't harm her, and instead splashes water on her, so she can start crying and Mia can find her. Mia immediately swims over to get Noah, and she also watches as the whale moves away peacefully. Mia then hangs onto the raft to keep moving with Noah in the water. In the morning, she is very weak and also shivering. However, she tries to remain strong as she tells Noah that they have to survive so that they'll be able to tell their story. She mentions that Noah gave her strength and rescued her, despite her initial fear. In her final words, Mia expresses that she did everything in her power to survive just before losing consciousness. After a while, an Irish woman who is fishing from a nearby boat sees the raft, and calls the attention of her husband and son. They move closer and see Noah alone in the raft. After picking her up, the man and woman are shocked to see that the baby is all alone. However, the woman sees a rope made of headphones tied to the baby's raft. As she pulls it, she sees Mia and drags her out as well. Almost immediately, the woman helps Mia regain her consciousness after she initially fails to wake up. Mia asks for Noah, and she is handed the baby, after which the Irish woman tells her she's now safe and will be taken to the hospital. Mia then kisses Noah and starts crying, as she can't believe they made it out safely. With this story ends here. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.